What is up, everybody? This is Rebecca Johnson of Supergirl Radio. I don't know if anybody can hear the sounds in my area, but it's raining a lot. So hopefully it's a big storm. There's a lot of wind today. So I don't know how the stream's going to go. Hopefully we'll stay up and be fine. But just a word of warning, it is very stormy where I am, so hopefully that won't be distracting in any way for this live stream. We are going to be Brian says, sounds good, don't hear anything. Great, because it sounds really loud where I am, so with lots of rain up against the windows and stuff. So if you don't hear it, that's all that matters. It's distracting me, but as long as it doesn't bother you, that's great. We are going to be talking about All-Star Superman #1 for this week's episode of Supergirl Radio. And this was a reread for me, but it's been a long time since I've read it. And I believe, Morgan, are you there? Are you ready? Morgan, this is your first read through All-Star Superman?
This is my first read through. I bought the physical edition.
Wow.
Again, collect it, but so far I have yet to find an editor's note. So
well, I'm curious. We'll talk about the different ways in which we have read this, because we tend to read them differently in different formats. So we'll talk about that once we get into it. But it sounds like Brian in the chat has read All-Star Superman before. So If you have not read it, we will spoil things as we go along, but read
Not
it.
Not much in this one. It's the first one, so.
Yeah, well, the first one does have a little bit of a shocking twist.
It does.
That a character
Dun, dun,
might
dun.
be dying. Yes, a pretty major character too. So if you have not read All-Star Superman before, read it with us as we go along the 12
Read
issues.
along.
Read along. And Stanley also mentions there is an animated movie. So if you don't want to read the book, you just watch the movie. You'll probably be mostly okay. I don't know. There may be some differences. I don't know. Well, I haven't watched the movie in a long time.
Maybe we'll watch the movie after we finish the book.
Maybe so. Maybe we could see what the differences are. So
in our book club here.
So we will be talking all about All-Star Superman #1 as we make our way through this series. So Morgan, are you ready to go?
Yep.
Cool. Can you hear the rain?
No.
Oh, okay, good.
Is it loud?
It's loud to me. Okay, all right. I'm glad. I've got 2 people confirmed that it sounds like there's a storm right next to me. So I just want to make sure that people don't get distracted by it. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started, and we'll talk about All-Star Superman #1. That's the wrong video. I didn't mean to play. That is our preview music. So let's actually get to the real credits. Hopefully this is the right one.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yes! Welcome to Supergirl Radio, your source for all things Kara Zor-El. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And for this episode of the podcast, we are live and wired to review All-Star Superman #1, which was written by Grant Morrison with pencils by Frank Quitely, digitally inked by and colored by Jamie Grant, and lettered by Phil Balsman and Travis Lanham. We are reading this famous Superman comic book because James Gunn has referenced it as one of the major sources for his major sources of inspiration for his upcoming Superman movie. So in fact, Gunn was quoted as saying, quote, "Our plot has nothing to do with All-Star Superman, but some of the aesthetics of what Grant wrote and what Frank drew were incredibly influential. They also had that sort of science fiction and the idea of Lex as a mad science sorcerer almost, science in his own sort of sorcery, and the giant, the monsters and the threats and all of that the Silver Age." Oh, I don't think this either. James Gunn didn't say this right, or it wasn't documented right. This reads really weird. I'm sorry. And the giant, the monsters and the threats and all of that, the Silver Age look through a green lens. That makes sense to me. I think
I like to look through a lot of things through a green lens. It's what I call the Kermit lens.
I love the Kermit lens. Everything, honestly, should be through a Kermit lens.
It look a little bit greener.
Everything would be swampy and with banjo music, I feel like.
Exactly.
That sounds great, honestly. I would be into the Kermit lens. The quote ends, I think a lot of that was taken from All-Star Superman, and that was my biggest one in terms of the inspiration, for sure. Also my favorite, unquote. So if you are wondering why is a Supergirl podcast reviewing All-Star Superman, well, there's maybe 2 reasons. I think this is, an inspiration for the upcoming Superman movie, which we are pretty sure is going to also include Supergirl in it. And also,
better. Because we're just here for Supergirl.
Buy the
t-shirt. Well established.
Public store. But also, if I remember correctly, Nasty Luthor is in this, and we're big fans
I'm so excited. I can't wait. I have the physical edition and it's very tempting to like flip through and be like, where's
Don't skip ahead.
Nasty?
Don't skip ahead.
I'm like, where's Nasty? But no, I wanna experience it as like a shock for the first time when she pops up.
Yeah, so this is a first time for you reading All-Star Superman. This will be maybe my second or third time, but it's been a long time. And I will put all my cards on the table. I don't love this one.
Gasp.
I know it's like it's on all the lists of like best Superman stories of all time, and I'm like,
Sure.
It's okay. I don't love it. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but I respect its place in the history of Superman and the love that a lot of people have for it. So maybe this will be the one. Maybe in our discussions, I'll be like, yes, this is the greatest Superman story ever written.
Maybe I'll get really into it and like turn you around on it. I'll be like, but it was the sun, Rebecca.
Yeah. So as Stanley says in the chat, that is my hot take on Superman. I just don't love it. It's just not my favorite.
Her hot take is, it's all right.
Well, let's get into this discussion. So the issue description reads, quote, Grant Morrison and artist Frank Quitely, the acclaimed team behind JLA Earth 2, are at it once again, this time to strip down the Man of Steel to his timeless essential elements. The series touches on all of the, I'm going to read that again, just to put it down in a way that makes sense. To strip down the Man of Steel to his timeless essential elements. The series touches on all of the classic aspects of the Superman mythology, starting with a daring rescue of a doomed group of Helionauts on the surface of the sun. You know, the Helionauts and the classic aspects of the Superman mythology. The massive amounts of solar radiation affect Superman in a way no one could possibly anticipate. Except Lex Luthor, unquote.
Dun, dun, dun.
So this is that's actually a fairly good, I think, description for this first issue of All-Star Superman. So we should clarify how we're reading this, because sometimes we read these stories a little differently. So Morgan, how are you consuming All-Star Superman as we go through it?
Well, I'm excited that you asked, because I don't usually get to have like a show and tell aspect to this podcast. But I decided because this is an iconic story, and also because sometimes I'm sick of reading them on my phone so small, that I was going to just buy the trade. And that's what I did. And it's like a special deluxe edition.
It's beautiful.
It starts with like a little like intro, which I decided not to read because I was like, I feel like the person is assuming that I've read this already, and I have not. So I made the brave choice to skip the written intro.
So you're not one of those people who are like, if there's a prologue, you have to read the prologue before you start.
The thing is, I am that person, and it was physically painful not to do it. But I didn't. It's written by Chip Kidd, superfan, who is a designer, writer, and editor in New York City. It looks like he's done Batman animated, Peanuts, and some other stuff.
Wait, Batman animated Peanuts, or is it like Batman animated series?
I would
Peanuts?
Say if it
because
was Batman
I want to watch
animated Peanuts, that would be sick. And
I would so watch
there.
I
would be so there. It's a Batman animated, comma.
Okay. I was wondering if we would get like Snoopy and the Baron thing on his doghouse. Like,
that'd be so good. That'd be so good. Snoopy with like the little bat cowl on.
Yes. Someone write that up.
What's Snoopy's little like bird friend? What's his name?
Woodstock.
Woodstock is Robin.
Oh, absolutely. Snoopy would
Bird,
be Batman. Woodstock is Robin.
I think that I don't know how this goes wrong. And I feel like what we're pitching is kind of $1 million idea.
It's so good.
DC, call us. We have so many ideas, and
so
not
many
all
good ideas.
About Nasty Luthor. It said his work on Batman animated, then comma, Peanuts.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Thank you. Peanuts, the art of Charles M. Schultz, and Mythology, the DC Comics art of Alex Ross, has earned him 3 Eisner Awards.
Oh, good
He's
for him.
also the author of Batman Collected and Batmanga. So that's The Secret History of Batman in Japan. It's a fuller title than I thought.
That sounds amazing.
It said Batmanga and then exclamation point, and I thought that's it, but no, there's more. So that's who has written the introduction to this. I was like, I will read it at the end. So at the end of us reading through this run, I'm going to go back and see what he had to say.
Pick us back up on the introduction.
See if there's any pitch for a Batman Peanuts type series within.
He'd be as Batman.
It would be pretty great. That's what I'm saying.
So that's amazing. I'm glad that you got the it looks like the hardcover trade.
Indeed it is the hardcover. The thing about looking this up was that there's a lot of different editions. Just like everything with comics, it was kind of annoying, and I wanted to just like look it up, buy it. That's it. It probably took about 15 minutes to figure out which one I should be buying. I was like, they all look different. They've got different covers. Which one is the one? And I was like, well, the deluxe edition. That sounds nice.
That's got everything you probably should need.
It's got everything I should need. Bunson's a big fan of it. And it is indeed a hardcover, which I don't usually have most of my comics in. So that's fun too. So
it's amazing.
I got to buy myself a little treat as as part of the homework.
Very good. Well, I am going the more boring route. I already had the trade paperback in my Comixology account. So I'm reading it digitally, but it is the trade version. So I'm not reading it issue by issue. It's the digital trade. So I don't get the cool, fancy, beautiful book. I just have the guided view and the digital version. So that is how I am reading mine. So, Morgan, we have read issue number 1.
We sure have.
So what are your initial thoughts about this?
My initial thoughts. I liked the first issue. I felt a little confused. And I guess I had like my, initial question coming out of it was, should I have known the guy who was kind of like rainbow colored? I don't know how best to describe that.
No, I think that nails it, I think.
Thank you. So he's like a philanthropist ? I think that's what the headline that Lois is writing talks about. He's going on a mission to the sun, I guess, to see how hot it is. I'm not sure. He's like, I got a bottle of the sun. It's like for charity. I'm like,
he needed spoonfuls of sun.
He needed just a dollop of sun. It sounds like an old fashioned song. Like, I got a spoonful of sun. But
should be in a Mary Poppins movie, I feel like.
It does. That's kind of what it feels like. I felt like I was supposed to know who he was. I felt like it just expected me to know him. And I was like, who is he? So is he a comic book character that has appeared elsewhere, or did they just kind of drop this guy on us?
So I believe that is Mr. Quantum. His name is first dropped in quite early on in the issue. There's a big panel where Superman is flying through the sun towards the beginning after the quick recap of Superman's origin. And there's a spaceship of scientists that are on a ship that I think is called the Ray Bradbury, which is pretty fun, a fun Easter egg. But they mention in here that one of them says to another one, "We were grown with zero fear genes, Mr. Quantum." And then Mr. Quantum responds back to the character named Floral. So I believe Mr. Quantum is the guy with the rainbow colored jacket who has the project. I thought it was really funny that his super secret experimental thing is called Project with like a P.R.
It's like an acronym for something,
but it's just like a project. So so he is doing some experimental things, and he's seemingly working with Lex Luthor is what I got out of that, because Lex Luthor is he is controlling what is referred to by the issue as, let's see, what is it called? The genetically modified bomb in human form. So this team of scientists go up to the sun, and they have this kind of not beautiful creature, it seems, that looks like a human but is kind of a genetically modified human, as a bomb to throw into the sun. And Lex Luthor is the remote control person, sort of puppeteering that bomb. So it seems like Mr. Quantum is in possible cahoots with Lex Luthor. Does that help at all?
A little bit, yeah. I wasn't sure what the relationship between Quantum and Lex Luthor was. Like, did he know that Lex was the one controlling the weird
genetically modified bomb in human form?
Or was that like a surprise? Was that like, as they're getting down to the sun, it's like, guess what? It's me, Lex Luthor. It's been me the whole time. I don't know. That I wasn't clear on that.
I think he recognizes, I think Mr. Quantum recognizes some sort of connection to Lex Luthor at some point in the issue, but it doesn't seem like he's real happy about it. So I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure out where that was when he talks about Lex Luthor. Where does he say
I think
that?
it's like the second or third page. Like after the splash page of like Superman flying through the air is when he saw like the genetically altered bomb is like, it's me, Lex Luthor. And I couldn't remember if further in when Superman is just talking to Quantum, he's just like, that Lex, why do we trust him?
Yeah, it does seem like at one point Quantum says to Superman, Luthor has used us to kill you. So maybe he's not like teaming up with Lex Luthor, but he is recognizing that Lex Luthor had an effect on their mission.
Yeah, he seems to be like more pro Superman, in my opinion. He's kind of like, you've inspired us to like really mess with other people genetically to make our own. I'm not gonna say monsters because that would be rude, but like, and then he like winks. He's like, monsters. I think he says, and then after Superman gets exposed in the sun thing, he says, I promise you, I'll find a way to save you or to replace you if we have to. Thanks, Quantum. Helpful.
It's a win-win for Quantum.
It's a win-win. He was like, you know what? We've been doing like a lot of freaky experiments, dude. You should see the stuff we got in here. And he's like, then he like pulls out like a little vial. He's like, look at these little people. He like shakes it. Like that. So I feel like Quantum is supposed to be kind of like maybe like a good version of Lex Luthor, but in my opinion, he doesn't seem like such a
he's still messing with unnatural things.
He's still creating like a giant monster that they're just gonna like push into space, and then he's just got like a bunch of people in his pocket in a tube.
Yeah, he is dedicating his project resources toward building a new race of superhumans in case anything should ever happen to Superman. So let's hope nothing ever happens to Superman, because that sounds
I like that
not
Superman
great.
isn't like annoyed by this like I would be. When he says that, Superman goes, smart thinking. What? He's like, oh, hold on, bro. Let me show you my giant monster I made. Superman's like, that guy's sick. Legit.
He's real smart.
They're like fist bumping. I'm like, Superman, I feel like your arch nemesis does almost this exact same stuff. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there that maybe this isn't great.
I wouldn't want the person who might be responsible for saving my life like excited about his plan B.
Yeah,
that would make me nervous.
He's like, don't worry though, if you die, we're gonna make you but like real weird. I was like, that's not comforting somehow.
That does not instill any kind of hope.
It sure does not.
For the results of this situation. Mind the Gap says that Quantum is a stand-in for all Superman scientists, like allies like Emil Hamilton. So Dr. Emil Hamilton is usually associated with Superman, I believe. Is he Star Labs? Maybe usually.
Oh, that's a great question. I think so.
So this is kind of a similar situation where Superman is interacting with a scientist doctor of some sorts. Even though he sounds like a mad scientist in what he's doing, he does seem to actually want to help Superman. So Mr. Quantum is quite the character. He has a jacket that looks like it's from Back to the Future Part 2. I feel like it's sort of patterned off of Marty McFly's future jacket that he and his son wear. That's what it looks like to me. But Mr. Quantum is living in the future with his fashion. He also sort of reminds me, his look sort of reminds me like a Willy Wonka.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on his name? Oh my gosh, the guy from Pirates of the Caribbean. And he played Charlie. He played Willy Wonka, not the original Willy Wonka in the movie. But why am I blanking on his name?
Not the original guy, right? Like
not
the guy
the original guy.
Yes,
Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp. I
was about to say, like, oh, I'm totally there with you. Chalamet, right? Timothée Chalamet. and then you were like Pirates of the Caribbean, and I was like, Timothy, were you in that?
No, I was thinking of Johnny Depp, and I don't know why I blanked out on Johnny Depp's name, but he sort of reminds me also
just
he's got visually like Johnny Depp and Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. So
it does have that vibe.
Yeah, so he's kind of interesting. Any other questions, thoughts?
I guess, yeah. Let's see. Do I have any questions? Are they supposed to be on like out in space with their like little research lab area, or are they just like in the desert somewhere?
I think they go into space to try to get some of the sun and then to throw the genetically modified human bomb into the sun. But then their lab space, I think, is in the desert.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I also thought it was funny that their like little spaceship kind of looks like the Death Star.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at that now.
It all feels to me like I don't know. He seems to be completely fine with Quantum for some reason, but I feel like if I'm Superman, I'm catching some flags.
It does have a Death Star quality to it. I will say, now that you mention it, I'm seeing it now. Let's see if I can pull it up on the live stream. Where is that panel? I had it. There it is.
Yeah, that's the one I was just looking at too.
Yeah, so that does have a Death Star quality. It's circular. It looks not mechanical is the word I'm looking for, but it does have that sort of shape and that aesthetic to it. So yeah, I can see where you'd be getting the Death Star vibes. That should be a red flag. I agree.
It certainly should be. I feel like they're throwing a lot of shade onto Luthor, which they should, obviously. But I feel like we're giving Quantum a little bit too much of an easy go here.
There's not enough skepticism with Quantum.
We're just like, oh yes, this is our friendly mad scientist who creates monsters not of God or man.
I agree. There should be a healthy skepticism towards what this guy is doing. I agree.
I also thought it was funny that like Lex Luthor is all like connected to this machine where he can control the monster that's in the spaceship, but there's like a time lag, and so he like says stuff, and then like 9 minutes later the thing up there says it, so he has time to like threaten General Lane in between his evil plan. I just thought that was very funny.
Well, he is a genius evil mastermind, so he would have he even says in the issue that he has to time it out perfectly.
Yeah,
so he does. He times it out perfectly, and it ends up the way it's supposed to be. So Lex Luthor can do that even on a delay. He can definitely do that. I kind of like the idea that he is controlling it in that way. I think that's it's scary though for Lex Luthor to be able to do something devious from a remote location that he doesn't even have to be there to be doing. That puts a little too much power, I think, in Lex Luthor's hands.
Unstoppable. I also thought it was funny that like General Lane comes in. He was like, "You're supposed to be working on our science projects, not blowing up the sun." Like, General Lane, like, come on, man. When you let Lex Luthor out and you're like, do our project, didn't you think? Was a small part of you didn't think he's gonna make a monster and blow up the sun?
Now, here's the thing: if he was going to destroy the sun. So that seems like okay, I feel like we've had this discussion before on Supergirl Radio, because in season 6 of Supergirl, the TV show, there was an episode where Supergirl had to like block the sun or something. Do you remember that? And it made no sense because it was like, people need the sun. Like, what are you doing?
It's sort of super important to life on Earth.
Yeah. And so or they were going to do something to the sun, and it was like, what are you doing? So Lex Luthor could probably see it as like, if I do something to the sun, I mess with Superman because he gets his powers from the sun. But then it's like, dummy, that affects everybody else too.
That's gonna affect you eventually, when all life dies on Earth.
Yeah, we will need the sun at some point. So I think what is happening. Well, here's my question, because I haven't read this in a long time.
Yeah.
Are Quantum and his team? Is Quantum's team?
Yes.
Are they going up to the sun to try to save Superman at this point?
I don't think so.
Is the mission to try to save Superman's life? Or no, this is actually, now that I think about it, the mission is after, because they go up and they do this mission in the sun. And then they find out later that, oh, the sun is actually killing you because you've exposed yourself to it. So
too much sun.
too much sun. He's gotten a sunburn now, and now he is dying because of the sun.
He's flown too close to the sun. Ew.
Pretty good. I wish I had a red shot. So why then does Quantum go up to the sun and throw a bomb in there?
So I think the reason, looking back on the page where it's like the Daily Planet and it's Lois, her headline is Superman saves first man's sun mission. And then the subhead is philanthropist Leo Quintum, who set out to map the sun.
Yes.
So
okay.
I think it was like a scientific thing that they were doing, where they're like, we will get to know the sun better.
They just wanted to see what was up there.
We will introduce ourselves to the sun. And then Lex Luthor took advantage of their altruistic motives and tried to create a trap for Superman, which successfully, I guess.
So they brought this guy on the mission who turns out to be the genetically modified bomb in human form. And they don't anticipate him being a human bomb.
Yeah.
But because he is, they throw him out of the ship.
I guess my question is, when that guy shows up, and I'm not saying that we should judge books by covers, but that guy's clearly a monster.
Well, what if he was not a monster at the beginning when he got on the ship?
He, slowly transformed into a monster?
Maybe once he got closer to the sun, he became more monster-like.
It's like, yo, Ted, what's going on?
I'm just not feeling.
He's just like indigestion.
I recently watched
like his lab coat starting to split in the first panel.
I recently rewatched Airplane, and it sort of makes me think of like the lady who had fish for dinner, and so like she keeps like putting an egg keeps coming out of her mouth. Yes. So maybe that's it, and maybe that's how they were sort of tricked by Lex Luthor, is they didn't realize this guy was going to become this monster up in the ship, and then Lex started to control him, and I guess the only way to save their mission was for Superman to shove the genetically modified human bomb into the sun so that he would then blow up. So that, I guess, makes sense now that we're working through that. Okay.
Once we've worked through what the initial evil plan was, I think it makes sense. So I have to assume that the monster like came up and he just looked like a regular guy. He's like,
Yeah.
I would love the sun. And then like as they're like traveling to the sun, it's like, he's not looking so good, is he?
Okay.
He's like, over like the alien guy in Men in Black that's like wearing the face that's slowly slipping and looking less and less human-like as time goes on.
So to recap, Quantum and his team go up into space. They're studying the sun. They want to know the sun better. There's a guy on their team who, unbeknownst to them, is a genetically modified human bomb. In order to save the mission, Superman comes to get the human bomb, throws him to the sun. The bomb blows up. That makes extra radiation happen on Superman. He's now got a problem with the sun, and the sun is now killing him.
Yeah, Superman is now dying. And though Quantum is like, 50-50, either way I win. It's kind of a bummer for Superman, I think. He's like, not great for me. And he doesn't want anyone to know because he's got some stuff he's got to take care of.
Yeah. So Superman, his strength has tripled, and he has manifested a new power. That they say that he's manifested a new power, but don't say what that is. But his trip to the sun, according to this issue, has exposed him to critical levels of stellar radiation, which is more raw energy than your cells are able to process efficiently. So the source of his powers, ironically, devastatingly, might end up being the things that kill him.
Might be his very own doom. I also thought it was interesting when he is fighting the monster guy who is Lex Luthor, who is controlled by Lex Luthor, to protect the crew of Sun Explorers. They say he is shielding the ship by extending his own bioelectric field, which I thought was interesting because I feel like in my adventures with Superman, Superman has used his shield a couple of times, like extended his shield to other people. And I was like, is that a thing he does? I've never seen him do that before.
So is this the new power that's been manifested?
I don't know if it's the
Quantum
new,
talks about?
Maybe it is, maybe. Because when they talk about that, she says, it seems impossible. So maybe the shielding, using his bioelectric field to shield people is a new power for him. But I thought it was interesting because the shield thing, when it popped up in my adventures with Superman, was something I wasn't familiar with, and I was like, what's this?
We did have questions about that, so maybe that we'll have to look into that to see if that's an homage to All-Star Superman.
Mind the Gap says in the chat, the electricity is a reference to the 90s electric blue Superman.
Yeah, we don't talk much about the electric blue and red.
I have
Superman.
never heard of electric blue Superman.
Yes,
before.
there's a blue and a red one. I think this was post Superman death. Mind the Gap, if you want to fact check me on that, but I think it was either around Superman's death or after Superman's death in the comics. But yeah, the 90s in Superman mythology were real innovative, real experimental.
Yeah, wow, what an outfit he's wearing. Interesting. Electric blue Superman and very stylish. He's got his little red buddy, also very stylish. I don't know that I'm a fan of it, but sure, why not?
Yeah, so Superman does seem to have the new power because of his exposure to the sun. Now, Morgan, we do get some Lois Lane here. We get some Daily Planet staff. And then we get Clark at the very end as he comes back from his trip to the sun, and he's come back to work. So what did you think about the Daily Planet staff and how they were represented here?
I was excited to see my girl Kat.
Yeah.
She wasn't really paying attention to like all the Lex Luthor stuff that they were doing.
More important matters.
There was a hot window washer outside that was really taking all of her focus. But I also really liked seeing our boy Steve.
Yeah.
He doesn't always pop up and everything, but when he does, always a delight. It seems like he's trying to like make something happen with Lois, and she's just not paying any attention
She's
to
not
him.
having it.
She says, "Lois, he's 93 million miles away, and I'm right here with a heart that's true." And I was like, you know what? That's a great line.
Compelling.
His heart is true, Lois. He's maybe a little bit of a doofus, but his heart is true. But yeah, I liked getting to see the Daily Planet group. We got to see Kat, we got to see Steve, we got to see Jimmy Olsen, and we got to see Perry White. And they have a newspaper that they're putting out for the next day. Luther lied. I like the alliteration.
Mm-hmm. Short and sweet.
Very much feels like, yeah, that's sort of what he does. But it seems like everybody was really like thrown off by the fact that Luther lied about turning over a new leaf and was betraying them. They're like,
it's the story of the century, is what they say.
Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal.
Yeah, so I really enjoy the Daily Planet staff interactions in this, and the stuff at the end where Clark is arriving back to the planet very late, and part of the reason why he's late is he is trying to save a young boy, it looks like, chasing after his dog, and they're about to get hit by some sort of truck. So Superman is saving them as he is late for work. And so I think the Daily Planet stuff, I think, was very good in this one. And there's a scene towards the end here where Clark has something really important to tell Lois. What did you think about that?
I was surprised because I wasn't sure. You're never sure if you're starting something new. Superman, what are the established rules of Superman, and what are established rules of the Superman Lois relationship? Sometimes
you have to define the relationship. You got to DTR that thing.
You do. You have to DTR every time you pick up a new Superman media. Immediately, you got to DTR. Does she know? Does she think Clark and Superman are two different people? Is she in a relationship with either of those people? And so it's not always easy to know. It seems like in this version, she knows Superman and she knows Clark, and she knows them as two separate people. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was really interesting at the end of this issue. He's like, I guess I'm gonna die. The first thing I want to do, I think I gotta tell my girl Lois I'm Superman. It's like he's like, I don't have that much time. I gotta make some magic happen.
Now, do you think that because Lois says something, a guy on the street says, your boyfriend's an idiot, and she says, how dare you, and he's not my idiot. So that sort of sounded like to me that she and Clark were not an item.
That's what it sounded like to me, because he said, like, thanks, like I don't know where my self-esteem would be without you. So it seems to me that they're just friends, or
they're just work colleagues,
at this point, and not romantically linked. And I'm wondering if this is sort of a version of the story, because we talk about this a lot. Sometimes there's a version of the story where Lois is really into Superman, not knowing that it's Clark Kent in front of her the whole time. And that's kind of the vibe I'm getting here, especially when she's working on a story about Superman and Steve is like, don't bother with Superman. I'm right here, girl.
I've got a heart that's true.
I got a heart that's true. You wonder if like everybody knows she has like a little crush on Superman or something. But it certainly seems like her and Clark are just friendly with each other, and there's not like a relationship there.
So it seems like he does, by the end of the first issue, reveal himself. Clark reveals himself as Superman to Lois, and it seems shocking enough that she drops her groceries. So it's been a while for me since I've read this story, and so I don't remember what happens in the second issue. But just my instant reaction here is that I don't love it when Lois is portrayed as only being interested in Clark once she finds out that he's Superman. I don't like that. I don't like those kinds of versions of Superman. So we'll have to see when we get into the second issue how that is handled. I can't remember what I did yesterday, so of course I'm not going to remember when I read this story a very, very long time ago. So I will be just as surprised as you, Morgan, how this pans out in the second one. But I think it's a good cliffhanger for the comic. But I don't love it when Lois seems to only be interested in Clark when she finds out that he is also Superman.
Yeah, I agree. That's often not my favorite either, is when she's like really into Superman and doesn't even pay Clark any attention until she finds out he's Superman. And then she's like, oh, okay. Convenient for me. So not my favorite either, but I did think it was a strong cliffhanger to leave the first issue off on. We've got kind of two cliffhangers going into the second issue. First is the Clark revealing to Lois that he's Superman, and second is that Superman's dying. That's a pretty big cliffhanger.
That's a pretty big reveal in this issue. Right out of the gate, Superman's dying.
Out of the gate. They're starting strong. They're like, Superman is going out, and you're like, what?
And there's two options. Either this Quantum character, who we should be very skeptical of.
I don't trust him.
he could save Superman, or he could just let Superman die, and he creates a series of genetically modified people who become superhuman. So who knows how that's going to turn out. And also, I think another cliffhanger, there's like 3 maybe cliffhangers in this one, that Lex Luthor is going back to jail, I think.
Oh.
Is that right? Did I read that correctly?
Unless he killed General Lane off panel, which feels possible because he's got him in like like a chokehold. But actually, yeah, you're right. They talk about how he went smiling into being arrested, and that he seems like very Lois says, can you believe he walked smiling into custody? He could wind up in the electric chair. So we know he's got some sort of plan brewing because it's Lex Luthor, but what?
This isn't like a flashback before he starts working for General Lane, right? Like I was sort of reading it as so he does the stuff with General Lane, and then I guess the government finds out that Lex is behind the genetically modified human bomb that goes into the sun, and maybe that's the murder that they're talking about, that maybe like he genetically modified this guy and then murdered him through making him a bomb. I don't know. And also crimes against humanity. I guess blowing up the sun is...
I mean, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. That's going to kill us all. So
do we think Lex going back to jail is a result of what happens at this, like,
I think
sun
so.
mission?
I was flipping back and forth between the pages, the beautiful physical pages that I can. It's just so nice to read something that's real.
Sometimes it's nice to flip a page. Yeah,
it's sometimes nice to flip a page. And he looks like he's in a very very similar outfit than the one he's in the earlier lab scene, and the sort of the coloration is the same. So I feel like we're supposed to take from that it's like a continuation of that scene, maybe, or that it is happening in the same sort of timeline.
Okay, he could have killed General Lane.
He could have killed I feel like we would have found out from Lois, though. She would have been like, our dad, though, you know?
Maybe she doesn't know yet.
Maybe we'll find out in the next issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get the impression that he is in the same outfit. It's like this like kind of skin tight like white outfit that he was wearing to control that monster in space, and it looks like when he's like giving himself up, it's the same outfit. So my guess is that this is in a current timeline and not a past timeline that this just happened.
So I guess we'll find out what he did. He seems to like the fact that he's going back to prison.
He's got something going on. I don't trust him.
He's not upset about it in any ways. So he says they should lock him up before he does something really terrible to Superman. So I think Lex is pretty excited about going back to prison.
He's got some kind of plan brewing that involves prison, I guess.
One of my questions, Morgan, for you about this issue is because I always like discussing these things with you because the benefit of talking about this stuff with another person is to get different perspectives, maybe on something you don't understand. So the way that these issues are broken up is at the very beginning, it says episode 1 ... faster ... So I guess my first question to that is, why is it an episode versus an issue? Because this is not like a TV episode. And then my second question is, why do you think it's called faster? Now, inside the issue, it does, like, there's a word that says faster.
Yeah. They also have like this kind of thing that looks like what's at like the bottom of a movie poster.
Oh, let me
In
see.
mine.
Is that so interesting? Okay, so
And then
is
faster is at the bottom.
this is why this is
This is
different.
why
This is
why we
different
show
in
and
the
tell.
this is the different one. This is different in the digital version. Let me show you what
Oh.
it looks like in the digital version. So in the digital version, in my Comixology account, I have that space, but I don't have what it says. So will you tell me?
Yes.
Will you tell me what it
So
says?
basically it's just the I'm trying to get it so that the ring light doesn't kill
Okay,
what
so
I'm
it does
trying to
look like a
show.
movie poster.
But it's
yeah.
basically like a movie poster where it talks about like who is the writer, who is the artist, all of that stuff. I thought it was funny that it even had like a rating on it.
What's the rating? It's hard
The
to see.
rating is, it says DC general audiences, pulse pounding, rip roaring action to be enjoyed by all.
Oh, good.
So just so you know what that is the rating system. It says a DC Comics production. It's got like the cover design. It's got who's edited by. It says DC presents All Star Superman episode 1, and then it has all of the
So are these like
basically the credits.
Are these like TV credits? So is that why it's an episode, you think?
Yeah, I think that's why it looks a lot like it's got that movie
I'll put me back on
poster,
there.
the whole movie poster look, and I thought that was cool. It's strange that they would have left that out of the.
Why couldn't you put it in there? Why
Seems
does
like
it need to come
It
out?
would have been in the digital version. I don't know. This is my issue. Every time this is gonna always happen to us.
Yeah, something is always different in the different ways, and it makes no sense to take it out. Like,
It doesn't.
it's not hurting anything to have it in there. I don't understand.
No, and it seems that. So where does it say episode 1 for you? Because I will
at
say
the very beginning.
Because I will say that's where it said episode 1 for me, I believe.
Okay, I will show you.
Not anywhere else.
On my digital version. So on this first, I guess first cover before you go to the Superman origin story, it says episode 1 faster.
Oh, see that panel or that page does not exist in my version.
Really? Why?
Yeah, in fact, I could show you. In my version, it's the cover, and then when you, so it's him on the roof, and then when you flip, it's this. It's just this. It's sky and a little bit of the Superman crest. There's nothing else.
There's no reason that has to be different.
Why would you change? Like, why? We don't know whose version is right, but why would you change it?
I mean, yours is the deluxe version, so yours is probably the superior version of it. But
it's very strange. Very
strange.
It
is weird. And I guess, do we think the
I just wanted to bring this up from the chat. Brian in the chat says, I see the text on DC Infinite. So now there are multiple. It depends where you're reading it. If you're reading it in the physical trade, you get it. If you're reading it on the Comixology ones, you don't.
Not getting it through. Maybe Amazon's like, get that out of here.
They're like, no.
That is crazy. I don't know why they're not the same across the board. Are there different
Very
versions
strange.
of the trade in the digital farm? I'll have to look at that. There may be maybe I need to buy the digital deluxe version of the trade. But now we've kind of figured out maybe why it's an episode, but why do you think the title is faster? Because I do see that the word faster is underneath the panel where Lex says, before I do something really terrible to Superman. But I don't know why that word is there.
Yeah, I don't either. I wasn't sure why the issue would be called, or the episode, I guess, would be called that. Maybe they're doing like a faster, stronger thing, but I think
Yes,
it would be
okay.
hard to know that until we got to like the next issue.
Well,
which
if they were going to do it that way, shouldn't this one have been stronger? Because they talk in the issue about how Superman's strength has tripled.
Yeah, it does seem like it should be. I don't know. I don't feel like anything happens in this issue that relates to the title faster, at all, really. That one threw me off so much. I was like, why does it just say faster at the bottom? Like, I was a little bit thrown by
Is
that.
it like speeding up the timeline? Like maybe you go from Lex being arrested to like, it's like then, faster in the future, Clark is talking to Lois and reveals himself as Superman. I don't know.
Maybe. I
I
could
don't.
see that as maybe being something. But yeah, I thought that the title was a little strange.
Okay, well let's keep an eye on that as we move forward in these issues to see if the title then appears in a consistent way all throughout these issues. Or these episodes, I guess, to see how that continues to move forward. Well, I think we talked about everything that was in here, but is there anything else you wanted to discuss about the story before we go to the art?
No, I think I'm interested in where the story's gonna go, and I think that they had a couple of big twists in the first issue that would, if I wasn't doing this as a read along, like a book club, I probably would have went right to the next issue. I probably been like, "What's happening?" Which I think is good. If you're starting a new book, you want the first issue to really hook people in. You don't want people to be like, "Oh yeah, I'll try to remember to pick that up on issue 2. You want people to be like, "What's gonna happen?
Superman's dying. What?
Superman's dying?" And Lois knows now? Like, you wanna go out swinging, and, like, take a big swing in the first issue, and I think this one did that successfully.
Yeah, I think all the cliffhangers at the end are very, very good. And I think it establishes kind of the relationship between Clark and Lois, and it also establishes the relationship between Superman and Lex Luthor. So I think those are all very solid in the world building in terms of like knowing the Daily Planet and knowing who the bad guys are and who the heroes are, and knowing what is going on with Superman. So I think all of that is pretty solid. I was a little bit lost at the beginning with the genetically modified human bomb, but I think we got there. We figured that out. And so the rest of it was pretty easy to read. It was an easy read. I'll say that. I thought it was an enjoyable, easy read in terms of the story. I guess as we move towards the art, this is the big question I have for you, Morgan, because the art in this story, in this 12 episode story of All-Star Superman, it's a little different. It does stand out in the art being somewhat different. I don't know if this was someone can fact check me, but I don't know if this is there was a time period, I think in the 90s, where they were trying to not have a lot of like I don't know what the comic book or artists would call like an outline in the art, not a lot of like penciling, not a lot of effort into like making the blacks really black. And so the art is different in that way. I think that was kind of a thing that they were playing with across DC and Marvel at the time. So what do you think about this art style?
Interesting. When I saw the Stanley's question about the unusual art, I was like, "Oh, I didn't think of it as being necessarily unusual."
Okay.
I don't know if it's because I've read maybe more recent stuff where they play around with the art styles a lot more often, and like maybe back when this was being released, I think it was like 2005 is when it started. This kind of style of art would have been more of a departure for comics, but I like the style of art. I think it's fun. I wasn't really looking at it as being like specifically all that unusual though.
Yeah, I think to me, I understand the question because the art is um it doesn't have there are some blacks there, but some of it is I don't know, some of it doesn't really stand out as well to me. So I don't love this art style. I don't think it's the greatest just for my personal preference, but I think the art gets the job done. I think it shows me what it needs to show me. Even though I don't personally like, it's not of my taste, but I think it does the storytelling. Like it does all of the things it needs to do to tell the story. So I can't criticize it too much for that, but it does stand out on its own. And I will say that Mind the Gap has a good comment in the chat that says, I love the art because so much DC Comics art is supposed to just get it out. So it's nice when a DC or Marvel comic looks different. So I will give it that this art style is something that stands out from the crowd, that it's different from a lot of other comics probably of the time. So that is something to note.
And Stanley in the chat also said, this artist is famous for his very unique art. So this is like his style that maybe was like pretty dissimilar to like the house style that you would have seen. So that was probably another thing that at the time would have like really set this book apart, which I think is pretty neat.
And it does make it memorable. Like even me not remembering the story very well, I do remember the art style and I do remember kind of what it looked like. So there is that. Were there any pages or panels that you thought were especially grabbing your attention?
I really liked the first like sort of 2-page spread. It's behind us of Superman flying through what looks like the sun or close to the sun. I thought that was really nice, very striking. I do really like our boy whose name I have already forgotten.
Quintum.
Quintum. I think there's some panels when they're testing him out of like how much can he lift, and it's like a zoom in on Quintum's face, and I was like, whoa, that guy's crazy looking. His glasses don't even connect together.
Yes, he does not have a thing across the nose, like a bridge.
Yeah, no bridge. That's how in the future Quintum is. He's getting to see his full outfit and all the different lights. Beautiful outfit.
Just two monocles is really
just two.
That's the future.
Two sort of like orange tinted monocles. That's what we are working with. That's what Quintum is like putting down for his outfit. And I like it. and then I also really like the panel which is your background, which is Clark running into Perry White's office and very clumsily like tripping over something and like knocking a coffee out of some guy's hand and then picking it up and like carefully putting it down and then tripping again into the office. I thought that was a fun sequence of events that we got to see visually all in one panel, and I thought that was really cool how they represented it that way.
Yeah, it's a clever way to show Clark Kent's clumsy nature and what that might look like to his coworkers, because it looks like Steve Lombard is in that shot with him. So I like the use of that. It's a good way to show that. Yeah, I think in even though I'm sort of not loving the art style, I think it really gets the job done in telling the story. I really like the stuff with Lex Luthor and sort of the red room. I don't know if this is like a red sun room somehow, but I really enjoyed those panels. They stuck out really well, and I also like the panels where Lois is typing out her headline. I thought that was cool because the first panel on mine in the digital version, it's on page well, it says 12 on there, but it's page 13 of the Comixology pages. But the first panel is like her cursor, and then she types it out. And then so it's cool to see like Lois is probably operating on an older machine. It looks like an older computer, even though she's on a laptop, but it's neat to see what Lois is looking at. We're essentially getting Lois Lane's point of view as she's typing up her story. So I really enjoyed that so much. So some of the storytelling I think is really pretty good here in terms of the art, even though it's not my favorite style for it. I think it does what it needs to do. Is there I did want to respond to one question in the chat because it was personal to me. Stanley asked, does Rebecca like it more than she remembers talking about this issue? I think I'm going to hold off on that, the answer to that, because the lowest stuff in here is a large part of the reason why I don't love this story. And I think we also had another comment in here about the lowest parts of All-Star Superman. Where was it? I think it was from Mind the Gap, maybe.
I think you might be right. I feel like I saw it briefly and I should have started.
Where is it?
I did start. Okay. Mind the Gap said All-Star Superman is supposed to be if the Silver Age Superman survived into the modern day, so that informs some of the portrayals. I love this story, but I admit the take on Lois is the weakest part.
So I think that's what I'm going to pay attention as we move forward, because I don't love the Lois stuff in this story. And so I'll see if maybe another read through will change my mind on that. So, and I'll be curious, Morgan, about your take on this as well, and the specific kind of lowest parts of it. I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are. Okay, well, I think that does it for All-Star Superman #1. I think we covered everything as much as we could. So how are you feeling about getting into this series? Do you want to know more?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling interested. They've got me. I like what's going to happen next. I feel like I don't know what's going to happen in the rest of the series, but it's a strong opening chapter where there's a lot of stuff going on, and they've set up a lot of big stakes, and we'll see if that gets paid off through the story. But I think it is always good to like start a story and be like, okay, I'm interested in where this is going to go. There are some stakes to this. Who knows what's going to happen next? I do think that they've set up some interesting storylines to play out. So far, feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I feel this feels weird to me because I've read this before, but because my memory is so bad, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm excited I'm excited to find out what happens next too. So that's what's good about doing this before the movie comes out, the Superman movie comes out, that we will be fresh on it and be able to sort of see the influence of it as we go through it. So as far as I know, this is only a 12 issue or 12 episode book. So it's not too long of a commitment. So that's also pretty nice to have a self-contained story. So looking forward to finishing out another one of these stories. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. If you'd like to contact us, you can post a comment on our website at supergirlradio.com. You can email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on X and Instagram, all at Supergirl Radio. If you like what we do, we encourage you to give us a rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you listen to podcasts. We are part of the DCTV Podcast and Multiverse of Color Network, so go check those out if you haven't already. You can hang out with us as we go live and wired on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern on the DCTV Podcast YouTube channel and the Supergirl Radio Facebook page if you'd rather watch us on Facebook. And DCTV Podcast also has a TeePublic store, so if you're in need of some new DC or DC TV or DC comic book related t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, magnets, tote bags, pins, phone cases, pillows, or stickers, go to supergirlradio.com and click on the TeePublic store link at the top of the page.
And since All-Star Superman #1 featured our boy Lex Luthor, Lion, as always, we have some Lex designs in the DC TV Podcast TeePublic store that we would like to suggest.
Wouldn't it be weird if people were like, wow, Lex Luthor, he's a really genuine, honest guy.
So honest. Always he shoots straight from the hip, you know? What
He's
you
so
see is what you
authentic.
get with Lex.
You can always trust Lex. He is who he says he is. So much integrity with Lex Luthor. That would be wild. Well, we would also like to thank our legion of super sponsors for supporting the Supergirl Radio Patreon. These are Michael, Anne Marie, Yvonne, Nicola, Abby, Miriam, Nicole, Brian, Ethan, Majuba, Annie, Rachel, and Kit. And if you would like to become a legion of super sponsor, go to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio. And if you would like to follow me on the social medias and things, you can follow me on several places. I'm on the social media platform Vero at Derby Kid, talking about what I'm watching, what I'm reading. Recently I have discovered that I need to reread another book that I read a couple of years ago called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And it kind of changed my life because it helped me find a better work-life balance, which was something that I needed desperately. And so now that I'm slipping into my bad habits of working a lot when I get home, I think it is time for me to reread The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry and get back into some practices that help me find that work-life balance again. So that I post about what I'm reading on Vero. So if you want to see what I'm reading, watching, listening to, I share that stuff over there. On Instagram, I'm at the Derby Kid. If you want to see some pictures that I post and some cool things that I share in my stories. And if you want to follow me on YouTube, you can go to youtube.com/duckmilkprod. That's my personal YouTube channel. And I'm also needing to catch up on a travel blog that I do with my brother called Oasis Broom. So we're at Oasis Broom on social media and YouTube.
Nice. And you can follow me across the internet at Mojotastic. You can also find me as a co-host on the Legendary Ladies podcast, where last week we talked about the Apple TV movie, The Gorge.
I had so much fun
in it.
I had so much fun listening to that episode, by the way. I thought it was a great discussion.
Thank you. I went in blind. And so I believe it was Amy watched the trailer and she said the trailer gave away the whole movie.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm glad that I went in blind because there were some twists and turns I wasn't expecting in that movie. There were some plant people and strange things happening. And I was like, I'm glad I didn't know about any of this going in. I'm glad I thought it was maybe just two people falling in love across a gorge. It was so much more. So if you have also watched The Gorge and you're like, I'm trying to get people to talk about it, where my Gorge fans at? Like, there's really no good way to like my Gorgiacs.
The Gorgettes.
The Gorgettes.
Yes, they need a fan name for that, I think. Actually, y'all's discussion made me want to watch the movie.
Wow. It's probably less good than we I'm gonna go ahead and get ahead of myself there and be like, if I've piqued your interest and you watch The Gorge and you're like, oh, it was only okay. That's not my fault. I also okay. But it was a fun time. So
I love the Legendary Ladies because you all are such a good mix of opinions. And you bring something, like each of you brings something different to the table. Like even if one or two of y'all are like, well, this is pretty good. Like there's Kat in the background going, well, I don't know. And so that's what I love about the Legendary Ladies. There's always a really good balance.
Usually it's pretty rare that we all 100% enjoy something or 100% hate something. There's usually like one of us is like, well, that's not fair, you guys. Or somebody being like, really that? So yeah, I think we were all like kind of in the middle of the gorge, if you will. But sort of at differing levels, I would say, on the movie. But yeah, that was a fun one, and I feel like in a couple of months you're gonna be like, oh, remember that movie The Gorge? And everybody's gonna be like, no. So you want to get in now while people still know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so you may have inspired me to watch The Gorge. I'm
You'll have
very
to
excited about
report back.
it. Okay, I'll have to let you know. Even though I listened to that whole discussion, I feel like I would forget about what it was like by tomorrow, and I could
That's
just
fair.
I could just go watch it.
Honestly, sort of the vibe of The Gorge, I think. I think you're saying.
Oh, that's good to know. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for anything else before we wrap up. Anything else you want to plug?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I felt like I interrupted because I wanted to talk about the legendary lady so much. Okay, well, good. I felt like I was interrupting, but since I maybe didn't, we are good. So that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon, and we'll have to read the next issue of All-Star Superman before Lex Luthor does something really terrible to Superman.
McGurk! I love
Not
typing.
mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because
She looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
no.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yeah!